All right, let's talk about stress. We all know it, we all feel it. But what is it really? Today, we're going to put that feeling under the microscope and break it down to see what's actually going on in our heads when we get overwhelmed.
You know that feeling, right? That heavy cloud just hangs over you. You feel pressured, worried, maybe a little irritable, but you can't quite put your finger on the exact reason why. Well, what if I told you that being able to name the different parts of that cloud is the first step to making it go away? You see, psychologists have figured out that what we usually just call stress is actually more like a cocktail. It's a mix of four very specific ingredients: frustration, conflict, pressure, and anxiety. And once you know what's in the mix, you can start to manage the whole thing. So here's our game plan. First, we'll quickly go over the basic anatomy of stress. Then we're going to dive into those first two ingredients, that feeling of being blocked and the one where you're being pulled in two different directions. After that, we'll tackle the demands from the outside world and our body's internal alarm system. And finally, we'll see how it all connects into a vicious cycle and how we can break it.
Okay, let's pop the hood and take a look. These feelings, they aren't just random noise. Nope, they are very specific, predictable ways our minds react to life's challenges. And if we can understand the mechanics, well, we can start to feel a lot more like we're in the driver's seat. First up, let's talk about our goals, our wants, our desires. This is all about two forces that can really mess with our momentum: frustration, which is when something gets in our way, and conflict, which is when we get pulled apart from the inside. Frustration. Oh yeah, we all know this one. You're trying to get to work, you've got a goal, but you're stuck in a massive traffic jam. That feeling? That's it. In fact, psychologists Dollard and Miller famously connected this feeling to aggression. It makes sense, right? When our path is blocked, all that energy has to go somewhere, and a lot of the time, it turns into anger. Now, what's really key here is figuring out where that roadblock is coming from. Sometimes it's external, things like red tape, not enough money, or other people getting in your way. But a lot of the time, the barrier is actually inside us. It's our own self-doubt, or maybe a skill we haven't developed yet. Knowing the difference is a total game changer. Okay, next up in our stress cocktail is conflict. This is that internal tug of war. It's when you want two different things that you just can't have at the same time. It's the classic stuck between a rock and a hard place feeling, and it can be absolutely paralyzing. A psychologist named Kurt Lewin broke this down perfectly into three types that you'll definitely recognize. First, there's approach. That's when you have to choose between two great things, like two amazing job offers. Then you have avoidance, choosing between two bad options, like doing a task you hate or dealing with the fallout of not doing it. And finally, the one we run into all the time, approach avoidance. This is when one single choice has both good and bad sides, like a promotion that comes with more money, but also a ton more stress. So, we've covered our internal drives and goals. Now let's switch gears and look at the forces coming at us from the outside and how our bodies react to all of it. This brings us to the next two ingredients in our cocktail: pressure and anxiety. Pressure is all about demands. It's the weight of deadlines at work, what society expects from us, or even the super high standards we set for ourselves. It's that feeling that you have to deliver, you must perform, usually right when you feel like you're running on empty. I mean, modern life is basically built on this feeling, isn't it? But here's a fascinating twist. Pressure isn't always a bad thing. This is shown perfectly by something called the Yerkes-Dodson law. Take a look at this chart. With too little pressure on the left, our performance is, well, kind of sleepy. But add a little bit of pressure and boom, we hit that sweet spot in the middle, our peak performance. But if you keep adding more and more, our performance totally tanks. That zone on the right, that's burnout. And finally, we get to anxiety. This is the one we often just call stress. Think of this as your body's alarm system going off. It's that physical and mental state of being on high alert. A researcher named Hans Selye famously defined it as the body's response to any demand placed on it, whether it's good or bad. It's the racing heart, the turning stomach, the whirlwind of worries. Selye actually figured out that our bodies go through three predictable stages when stress sticks around. First is the alarm stage. That's your initial shock, your fight or flight system kicks into high gear. If the stressor doesn't go away, you enter resistance, where your body is working overtime to cope. But you can't stay there forever. Eventually, you hit exhaustion. Your resources are just gone, and that's when you get sick and burned out. So here's where we tie it all together. The most important thing to get is that these four components of stress, frustration, conflict, pressure, and anxiety, they don't exist in a vacuum.
They're all connected, and they often feed off each other, creating this awful, self-perpetuating cycle. Let's just walk through an example. Say your goal of getting a promotion is blocked. That's frustration. This might lead to conflict with a coworker you see as your competition. That conflict then creates this intense pressure to outperform them. All of that triggers anxiety, making you worried and tense, which then makes it harder to focus, leading to even more frustration because your work starts to slip. See? Round and round it goes.
And this table really sums up the stakes here. On the one hand, the negative impact is huge. We're talking burnout, illness, and even societal problems like mistrust and division. But, and this is a really big but, look at the other side. If we can learn to manage these forces, they actually hold incredible potential. They can build resilience, spark creativity, and even make our relationships stronger.
And that is the ultimate point here. Simply being able to identify what you're feeling, to say, okay, this isn't just stress, this is frustration, or this is a conflict. That's a superpower. It takes this big, tangled mess of a feeling and turns it into a set of specific problems that you can actually start to solve. Awareness is everything. So I'll leave you with this question. Now that you know the players on the field, who's really in control? The next time that overwhelming feeling starts to creep in, instead of just saying, I'm so stressed, maybe try asking yourself, am I frustrated? Am I in a conflict? Am I feeling pressured? Or is this anxiety? Because once you know exactly what you're up against, the whole game changes.